What's going on, everyone, and welcome to episode number 12 of the Stokesy and Stoner Crypto Show. We've got a pretty big one for you today. We're going to cut down on our articles and we're going to have some musings. We're going to have some open discussion on what's happened with Trump and the US administration and their drive, their push to give greater regulatory clarity, dare I call it that, to the cryptocurrency and Bitcoin space. But we're also going to be looking at the markets like we always do. I've got one article I'm going to look at. I'm going to be looking at essentially a portion of the bill in India has been leaked that is being proposed or drafted to place a complete ban on cryptocurrencies and actually make using it illegal. Adam, over to you for what you were discussing before the intro.
Bo, my crypto brother, great to see you again. Happy 12th anniversary. I'm going to discuss what happened with terrible Tether and how it may have affected the markets. And as discussed, crypto goers, we're going to go more into conversation as opposed to reviewing articles that we could probably do in our own time. And of course, at the end, we'll check out our coin picks.
So stick around, guys, and let's get started. Welcome back to the video, everyone. You're here with Bo Stoner from Cryptocurrency Australia, the channel where Bitcoin economics and politics comes together. And Adam, who are they with?
Adam Stokes Crypto and a cup of tea.
Sorry, mate, I got you right mid-sip. I didn't realize you had.
You've never done that before either.
I heard you gulp. I actually heard the gulp. It was like,
did you?
It was awesome. It was awesome. Don't cut that out. That it was going to be great for a laugh.
I hope in the future that it's have a parody of us saying, and Bo here's Adam gulping. Let's not go down there.
Well, look, guys, getting straight into the market, let's take a look at what we've got over the past 7 days. So it's been quite a tumultuous week. You know, relative to the past 6 months, this is just a blip. It's really nothing. But in terms of world events and price, it's been a pretty rough week. You know, we're looking at just the 7 days on Bitcoin, down nearly 14%. We know we've had very strong statements from Trump. We've had today statements from Steve Mnuchin, Secretary of the Treasury. So it's been a pretty big week, right? It's been a pretty big week in crypto, but we've seen, you know, quite a rapid recovery of Bitcoin just in the past 24 hours. It's actually up 4.9%. It's up 1% in the past hour. How the other cryptos have fared: Ethereum down 27%. It's gotten absolutely smoked. Litecoin down 26%, Bitcoin Cash down 26.5%, EOS down 29%, SV down 37%. So there's been some fair drillings with some of these cryptos. But Adam, you've done some research on Tether. You have identified and really looked into this issue over, you know, some Tethers being printed out of thin air. Why don't you give us your take on the markets and how this Tether mishap has played into that?
Yeah, before we get into that article, as you mentioned, Bo, we've seen blips on the Bitcoin and crypto radar over and over again. We're certainly not new to this, but you're dead right. This week is different. This week is different. The numbers don't reflect how different it is. It's different because we've got basically the most powerful person on the planet now stepping in and saying something. Before there wasn't much mentioned, but now that we have President of the United States, POTUS, saying something, doesn't matter what he says, the fact that he says something has flow-on effects. And we can see governments who are now starting to realize what's happening in the crypto space and how it will actually affect their ability to print money and dominate the world. Now, I've released a couple of videos recently on what's happening in the markets and terrible Tether. But before we just go into this article, I want to go down looking at these markets. As you mentioned, Bo, live refresh, as we'll do this live refresh right now, I can see actually in the last 24 hours, 5.21%. So well done, Bitcoin. It did drop below that 5-figure mark, and it was a scary drop because of what I just discussed and because of big, powerful people going into the space. But wow, Bitcoin rallying back up, the support it got just as it dropped below $10,000 and picked up. I have been watching this number almost religiously for the last 48 hours in particular, And in the last 24, we can see it's come back 5.21%. Even Ethereum creeping up 1.39%. But as you mentioned, Bo, Ethereum took an absolute kick in the guts. Probably, with the exception of EOS in the top 10, it took the biggest hit out of all of them. But that's what you get for sitting in number 2. But going over to this article on Tether. Now, what happened? Why did Bitcoin drop? I released a video just yesterday with a lot of passion, and I recommend that you guys check it out. I'll leave a link below. And this video was shot very briefly, and I had it with my poor dog Dino sitting next to me waiting to go for a walk. But I really had to get it out there because people were speculating why it happened. And in my opinion, as I outlined in this video, it wasn't because of Trump, although that may have had an effect. It wasn't because of government regulation, although that may have had an effect. But anything I list, we've seen it before. What, in my opinion, really happened was this. Tether, bloody Tether, mistakenly printing $5 billion. This article from Trust Nodes, and this article has been released on many sites, but tonight we've chosen Trust Nodes to read from. It states, Tether has mistakenly printed $5 billion worth of USDT during transition from the Bitcoin-based Omni platform to Tron. Paolo Ordoino, CTO at Bitfinex, said, while preparing the issuance from Omni to Tron swap, there have been an issue with the token decimal. Now, I didn't misspeak that. He actually wrote there have been an issue. I think he meant to say there has been, which is third person singular present, but he's said second person or first person singular present. Just that is neither here nor there. Moving on, it says, as in, they entered too many zeros or misplaced commas with the project intending to print 50 million, the crypto exchange Poloniex said. This occurred while Poloniex was conducting USDT chain swap with the help of Tether. An incorrect amount of USDT was, my screen just dropped out, an incorrect amount of USDT was accidentally minted, and this has since been resolved to the intended value. Tether minted $5 billion at 1734 London time, then burned 500 million 4 minutes later, and then went on to burn another $4.5 billion worth of Tether, in effect cancelling the whole thing. So they tried again a few hours later, and this time they were successful. Now we can see here a tweet from Paolo, and it just shows a picture of what they were doing, and he gave a few tweets and also referred to the tweets from Whale Alert. Now, Whale Alert, automatically, a bot picked up this huge pump into the markets and notified everyone. And this pump into the markets stimulated a rise, then a sudden crash when they realized what was happening. The article goes on to say, unfortunately, we have to play with different tool chains across multiple blockchains. Sometimes issues happen. We're working anyway to prevent this from happening in the future, Ordoino said. You can see that English isn't his first language, so there's a few grammatical errors there. This is the first time, as far as we were aware, that Tether has mistakenly printed money, with the mistake in this case pretty obvious due to the astonishing sum. It is unclear why Poloniex might have wanted to move the sum of their USDT to Tron, but Tether recently began moving a lot of USDT to Ethereum's blockchain, doubling the amount. Look, I'm not going to go on with this article because I want to get into the core of it, and I want to talk to you about it, but ultimately, Tether is this printing machine that we know, they've admitted, this isn't speculation, it is not linked to a dollar. They have said it themselves. Now, when they first created this so-called stable coin, they said that for every Tether that you buy, we will hold a dollar in reserves. And everyone, myself included, and I think you were as well, Bo, you released a video on it, we were suspicious of this. And then later they did change their terms and actually admitted that, well, we're not actually holding a dollar per Tether that we issue. And of course, this could never be the case, because if they couldn't invest that money and they couldn't do anything with all the money that they were making, how does the company make money? How do they pay this Paolo guy? How do they pay for anything? Now, of course, insurance companies, when you've got money coming in, or super funds or investment firms, you can take the money that the people give you and you can invest it, and that's fine. But with Tether, they said, no, we're going to hold this money and do nothing with it. Then they changed their terms and conditions. And now, my friend, we're in a situation where apparently fat fingers or the error of putting a comma or decimal place in the wrong place can mean the difference between 5 million, 50 million, and 5 billion, and even 500 million. Now, think about it. 50 billion is very different to 500 million and 5 million and 50 million. Now, I would think, I don't know about you, Bo, but if I was about to create out of thin air millions, tens of millions, hundreds of millions, or possibly billions, I would check, recheck, and check again. What I'm getting at here is not only do I not trust the background of Tether entirely, like how it works, but I don't trust what old Paolo is telling us. I I don't believe it was as simple as, oh, sorry, we made a mistake. Because as we can see, that mistake resulted in a huge drop in the market, which potentially allowed for lots of people to buy more Bitcoin and ironically buy Bitcoin, in fact, with Tether, even if it was burnt or not. I don't know if it was burnt. We can check it out. But then we have another layer to this, Bo, where now Tron has come into it. Now, if you wouldn't mind just going back to the the coin market cap, we can actually see Tron has dropped down to spot 11. Now, if you remember that this may mean nothing, but I certainly picked this up straight away, is that if you remember, Bitcoin SV and Tron were fighting it out for position 10. And here we have Bitcoin SV just sitting there quietly at position 9. And after this nonsense, Tron has dropped down to position 11, while Stellar, the little silent killer, has crept up there to position 9. Bo, I released this video, as I said, that I was furious about this happening. And in my opinion, we need to not focus on things like Libra. We need to focus not on things as governments I'm talking about, not on things such as Bitcoin, but we need to focus on this facade that is Tron, noting that a simple error apparently goes without any ramification to good old Paolo and his team, but huge ramification to you and me.
Yeah, I mean, it seems very unlikely that this was a simple mistake, because when you think about generally in any kind of software development, there's a review process. So generally they have this like review process on GitHub where it's either public or private, and they go through multiple people, generally for something very important, independently checking it, and then it'll either go back for refinement or it will continue and eventually be approved. Now, what I'm getting at here is when things are printed in the blockchain space, it's being done either via a smart contract or some other kind of script that's somehow connected to the blockchain. So someone is sitting there using either a simple front-end interface or doing some coding. When you're talking massive dollars, especially like this is huge. This is huge dollars, $5 billion. Like, let's put that into perspective. And also on that, I mean, what are the repercussions in the banking world when things like this happen? You know, when there's errors in the billions. Generally, people don't go to jail. That's true, but there are commissions, there are investigations. It's a big deal.
Absolutely.
It's not a matter of just putting out a tweet and saying, "Oh, we stuffed up. We left a decimal out." This stinks. This absolutely stinks, and I don't believe a word of it.
I don't either. That's good perspective that you put there. Think about it. They created $5 billion and they can cover it up allegedly with a tweet. What other world do we have? What other marketplace is there where you can say, oh, my mistake, $5 billion, and we just wiped billions of dollars off the market cap of Bitcoin and kick the crap out of Ethereum and every altcoin in the process? I know what we'll do. We'll just tweet. Now, the reality is they can do that. And that is the scary part of not the crypto space, but in particular, Tether.
Well, this is why we're seeing, quite frankly, the United States Treasury pulling together every single financial regulatory body to have a joint task force to prevent fraud and other issues in crypto, is because of this kind of malarkey. You know, because it's sheer insanity that this kind of thing can even happen to begin with. You know,
I remember Do you remember the New York Attorney General was looking into it a while ago? They were looking into Tether, and they were really putting pressure on Tether, and they're going through the books. That kind of died down. Have you heard anything about that? Like,
I believe it's still ongoing. It's with actually with Bitfinex, because Bitfinex is like
yeah,
the top company, as you would know, managing Tether. I believe it is still ongoing. They're just going through the process of, um, uh, like they're not in court, but they're going through discovery process, and there's pushback on what documents to release. And I believe it's still ongoing. I believe the investigation or the case is still ongoing.
I would keep, if I was asking, I've been, of course, thinking about this a lot. I've been thinking about it for 2 years, but more particularly in the last 2 days. If I was an investigating officer with anyone looking into Tether, I would keep it around one simple question, and that question would be, how do you get paid? Like, really, how do they get paid? How does Tether get paid? How does anyone in Tether get paid? Where does the
I'm
money
not
come from?
sure. I'm not sure. You know, maybe the exchanges that list the token pay a commission based on trading volume, because Tether provides an easier on ramp to their customers. I don't know. I don't know.
But the commission isn't actually made to Tether. The commission's made to Bitfinex. So,
Yes.
the trading platform. So, but before that existed, before they were working with Bitfinex, when it was just Tether itself, or was it always with Bitfinex?
It's always
How?
been Bitfinex.
Okay.
Always, but yeah, because one of the I believe executives that's on the board of directors for Tether is also on the board of directors for Bitfinex.
Yeah, I remember seeing that, and you can see here he's actually in this article. They're talking about that, but
Mm, mm.
I, I, w- I actually invite any organization, any government to audit the crap out of Tether and Bitfinex, and I hope they maintain their momentum and go. If New York AGs, I'm sure you're listening to our channel, go get them, Tigers, because we need you to stand up for the crypto space and stop this nonsense. Now, can you just, as you're with your technical background, Bo, can you explain to us the relationship between USDT, Bitfinex, Tron, and Ethereum?
Well, that's a pretty complicated question, man, and I don't know a lot about it. I didn't
Well,
know
so
that.
USDT is basically owned by Bitfinex,
Correct.
but how did this flow on to Tron?
I don't know. I don't know the history about how Tron has
Mm.
involvement here. I mean, it's you know, the crypto space is so complicated, man. There's so much going on at all times. I've never used Tether. I've never used Tether, not once. I've never seen it. Never seen a need for it. To me, it doesn't have a value proposition. I can see for traders it may have a value proposition, but I've never used it. So how it ties into Tron, man, I don't know.
Yeah, it's got 3 paragraphs here. I'll just read those last 3 ones, but it doesn't tell us much. It says it may well have something to do with fees due to Bitcoin's limited capacity. So Tether is now using older blockchains to take some pressure off Bitcoin. In addition, both Tron and Ethereum, they've written that in lowercase, I don't know why. In addition, both Tron and Ethereum have smart contracts which could incorporate USDT, especially in open finance type platforms where DAI is currently somewhat in demand. Ethereum dominates that space, dubbed DeFi, but Ethereum too currently has limited capacity. So they are now using some of Tron, which has super nodes rather than peer-to-peer nodes. So for what I'm picking up from there is that the volume of USDT is getting so large that they now have to lean on other blockchains to allow the transactions to go through. Is that how you interpret that?
Yeah, but you know, it's odd because I thought, um, I think Tether, the token, is an ERC20 token.
Yes, yes.
It's an
Yeah.
Ethereum based token. So what they're saying is they must be stressing Ethereum themselves purely by the amount of transactions occurring via Tether, because it is an ERC20. But interesting, they say take some pressure off Bitcoin. I didn't think Tether had any connection to Bitcoin, and if it did, it would be using a sidechain built on Liquid
Yeah.
blockchain's Liquid. So yeah, I don't know that the tech stack in particular of Tether, but interesting choice using Tron. That wouldn't have been the first one I would have picked.
Well, I thought Tron itself was built on an ERC20 token, wasn't it?
The token was, but
Yeah,
then they launched their own
their own block.
protocol, and I
Hmm.
think they did a mainnet swap. So the ERC20 was just used for fundraising, just for the ICO. But then once they launched their mainnet swap, they ported everyone's tokens over to native Tron.
When I was talking to the Skycoin team and also doing research over that, now Skycoin is way down in the charts, as in its position is quite low, but it's quite a long project. And years ago, Synth was talking about how Ethereum could be backed up, and how and when I did a very in-depth review of the Skycoin project, part of the Skycoin power was that it would use multiple blockchains, multiple levels, where they wouldn't all be sharing the same blockchain. And I wonder now, are we actually starting to see Ethereum, excluding 2.0 that's coming out? And I don't know much about 2.0 except that apparently it's going to be better than what we've got at the moment. Is it possible, Bo, that Ethereum, with the overload of ERC20 tokens, is now becoming so clogged that this is in fact an example of people who have built on Ethereum can now no longer keep up with themselves and are forced to explore other blockchains?
Yeah, you're spot on. It's been happening for probably about 6 to 12 months now. Many projects that built on Ethereum are porting over to other protocols like EOS. The Kenya guys here in Australia, they've ported over to Binance Chain. So their CAN token, which is ERC20, is now like a BEP2. So they're actually essentially they're going to be porting their smart contracts that were built using Solidity on the Ethereum main chain over to the Binance chain. So all these projects now are looking for other other blockchains that have higher or better finality, being faster transaction confirmation times, because Binance Chain is built using Cosmos, and Cosmos is basically like a white label blockchain architecture that projects can use and build. So Thor Chain is one, Binance Chain is one. I think some other projects are using Cosmos as well. But in other projects as well, like there is Synthetics here in Australia. I think they were originally on Ethereum, and they went to EOS. So there's these projects, because Ethereum is just dragging its feet big time. And I think it raises a greater question about Ethereum's long-term value proposition. It
Mm.
lost a lot of market share, not in terms of its valuation, but in terms of the attention it's getting and the amount of projects using it, because they've just taken so long. I just a couple of days ago did a video on how Vitalik Buterin has floated using Bitcoin Cash, which is just odd.
I saw that. I'm
It's
like, what the
just
hell?
odd. It is
Yeah.
odd. It is odd from every angle you look at it. So I think it casts serious doubt actually on
I'm
Ethereum's
glad you raised that
ability to
video.
innovate.
That video was really powerful to me. So we know there's a lot of passion around Bitcoin and a lot of love and, let's say it, hate for anything that's not Bitcoin but uses a Bitcoin name. For example, Bitcoin Cash, Bitcoin SV, Bitcoin Gold, Bitcoin Diamond, Bitcoin anything. And to hear Ethereum, and I'm glad you did that video, Bo. I'm like, oh my God, you're what? I was actually having lunch while I was listening to it. And I actually stopped eating for a while. And I'm like, he's doing what? Vitalik is going to Bitcoin Cash. Now, think about it. Bitcoin Cash, of course, is a fork from Bitcoin in itself. And it's nothing against Roger Ver. And for the record, when I actually got into the crypto space, most of the documentaries I first saw had Roger Ver in it. And I didn't know he was with Bitcoin Cash. I just saw his little Bitcoin logo. And I thought, oh, well, this is Dr. Bitcoin. But that's, of course, when I knew nothing. And now, of course, when you start to know more about Bitcoin, you can see, this is why so many people are really passionately against Bitcoin Cash and potentially Roger Ver and Craig Wright and so forth. But to hear that Vitalik, who made this incredible thing called Ethereum, then went to, of all places, of all coins out there, to Bitcoin Cash to say, hey, can we use your coin to layer on our thing? And what I got out from your engineering background was that once you start, and I'm walking in your space here, but as an outsider, I thought you explained it really well, Bo. I thought when you said that you've got one blockchain, and then once you start integrating a second layer or a second blockchain into it, the emergence of those two things just create more and more problems. And as a non-engineer, I'm like, yeah, that's really logical. If I've already got a complex system and then I have to merge or synergize or integrate a second complex system, we are in big trouble. And I think that project could be in big trouble. Now, Vitalik, of course, is a really, really smart dude. He was what he made it at like 18. He made Ethereum at 18, I think it was. And of course, he now has some of the best people in the world around him working for him and with him, shall we say. But in my review of Skycoin, I'm sorry to keep bringing up Skycoin, but the reason why I keep bringing up Skycoin is because it's a 10-year-old project. You've got great minds on it. And part of the Skycoin project was actually talking about Ethereum, competing with Ethereum. And years ago, I actually said it out. I said it on video. I said Ethereum is dead. And I wonder now, is this the first signs of Ethereum falling? Do you own any Ethereum?
Not anymore. I used to. It was one of my top 5 picks when I first started creating content and started investing. And I still think it's a solid coin to hold from an investment perspective, but from a utility perspective, from this protocol being used, which is why anyone should be buying a coin, is not based on speculation, but by how much that protocol is being used, how much intrinsic value is there, how many stakeholders are using this. That's what people should be looking at. Things have changed, right? Times change. We have to reevaluate positions all the time. If you're not being diligent enough with your investments. That the same goes for the stock market. The same goes for real estate. Things change. Markets change. There are always unknowns. You have to constantly reevaluate. And I made the decision to cut Ethereum probably 4 months ago. And it was actually on the back of some very weird stuff I saw from Vitalik and Joseph Lubin donating Ethereum to a project called Moloch DAO, which is like very satanic stuff. Moloch is the god of child sacrifice. And I just thought it was real weird, and I just wanted out of there for that. Now, you may call that an irrational decision. Maybe it was. But it was very odd. It was very, very odd. And I looked into it. I looked into some other things as well. Went kind of down the rabbit hole. I could have gone deeper, but I wasn't happy. I wasn't happy with people who essentially represent a project supporting projects like that.
How many Ethereum did we need to own to run? Remember I can't remember the technicalities. I think you need to own 32 or 34 Ethereum to have
It's never been confirmed, but people have speculated like 30.
See, I wonder now if people are just trying to strive for that 30 Ethereums. So currently the Ethereum is at $227 with a gain of 0.64% in the last 24 hours. And I actually put it out there to the crypto community. I feel a bit dirty for 2 reasons. One, I recommended this coin last week, of which we'll get to in a second, but I actually bought one yesterday. And the reason why I bought one yesterday is because it was so cheap, and I've actually made a 0.64% return on it. But the human side, the greedy side of me, I'm thinking, oh, if I get that 32 or 34 or whatever it is, Ethereums, then further down the track, I'll be in a position where I'll be getting some, if you will, dividends on this coins or a bit of returns on it. But I'm really starting to doubt it now. And I shouldn't have. My dad always said, go with your gut, Adam. And right from the beginning, my gut with Ethereum was bad. And part of the reason why my gut feeling with Ethereum was bad was, let's face it, most, if not all, of the ICOs, and this isn't particularly against Ethereum, but remember in 2017, all the ICOs that raped a lot of people of their money, it was all Ethereum based. Now, I'm not blaming Ethereum for this. Ethereum made a tool and people exploited that tool. And the Godfather Andreas tells us that more than 99% of ICOs built on the Ethereum network were scams or crashed. Think about that. More than 99% of anything, any ICO that was put on the Ethereum network, for whatever reason, crashed or just disappeared. And people have lost, one way or another, billions of dollars dealing directly or indirectly through Ethereum. But I'll probably flog this to death. What's going on over in India?
Yeah, mate, I'll just quickly touch on this one. Won't spend too much time on it, but essentially we've had a guy on Twitter here has come across an image of the draft bill proposed at completely banning crypto. Now, this has been floated for a while, like the idea that India was looking at a complete ban and actually jail sentences for people that use or interact with crypto. But now we've got an actual, a picture of a document. It may not be authentic. That's something to keep in mind. It reads authentic, but it may not be. It's interesting. It's in English. I would thought that the language being Hindi. Is Hindi the native language in
Many
India?
languages, but the official language, second to English, is Hindi. Yeah.
Oh, second to, so English is the number one primary language.
It was funny you should mention. I was actually speaking to a doctor from India recently, a PhD, and I actually said, "What is the national language?" Hindi is the national one. Lots of dialects, but of course, with a British influence, English
Yes.
is in there as well.
And right, and that makes sense because a lot of Indian foreigners you do see working in Australia have generally got quite good English, and that's obviously why it's because English is used a lot over there
From the British influence from
from the British
over two
influence.
centuries ago. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So reading into the article here from AMB Crypto that's actually explored this a little bit, they've just said crypto in India endangered. Extended section of draft bill circulated on social media. Now we know it already is in very difficult to use crypto over there because the central bank essentially banned any of its member banks from interacting with any crypto businesses. So there's no fiat gateways essentially in India. It killed all crypto businesses. Exchanges died overnight. But essentially, what it says in the bill under Section 8 is this. That no person shall directly or indirectly use cryptocurrency for activities including the following as a payment system, whether authorized under Section 4 of the Payments and Settlements Act 2007 or otherwise, buy or sell or store cryptocurrency, provide cryptocurrency related services to consumers or investors, which includes registering, trading, settling, clearing, or other services, trade cryptocurrency with Indian currency or any foreign currency, issue cryptocurrency related financial products as a basis of credit, issue cryptocurrency as a means of raising funds and or as a means of investment. And then he said down the bottom here, and let me, this is the guy that actually shared the section of the bill. And let me tell you this with all honesty, if there is a ban, I bet you on my words it will create a lot more headache for government than for investors. Honest traders and investors already have many ways to circumvent that ban and buy Bitcoin for long-term growth. So, you know, it's already difficult conditions in India. Whether this is true or not, I don't know. I think it's like 50-50. But if it comes through, if this draft bill goes through, crypto will be completely and utterly banned in India. Totally. Every single touching it will be illegal, which will probably make India the country that has banned Bitcoin the most severe anywhere in the world.
Could you think they could add a premium? So you remember in Korea when they South Korea went through issues with crypto, and it was quite a tragedy because Korea is remarkably technically advanced, very smart people, not many natural resources, so they rely, in fact, any natural resources really for export, they rely entirely on their brain. That is education and their ability to produce just through technical abilities. And as a result, as you know, Bo, I lived in Korea for nearly 2 years, and I was always inspired and amazed by how technically advanced and smart the Korean people were and how hard they worked. And crypto was a huge part of this Korean development and technological advancement. And then the government put pressure on them. And so you had the kimchi premium, it was dubbed, and Koreans were paying more for Bitcoin. It was a huge premium as well. I think the number 200 comes to my head, to my mind. So if it was like $5,000, they're paying $200 on top of that, and they were willingly lining up to pay this premium on Bitcoin. And of course, it appears now that the government in Korea has sort of come around saying, well, we can't really stop this. And we're so technologically advanced, we want to adopt this technology. We don't want to fight it. Just like you don't want to fight the internet, you want to adopt the internet. Do you think that premium, we could see that in India?
No, because it's literally right now it's illegal. There's no exchanges in India. You can't get it unless you buy it peer to peer. It's illegal. So the central bank there issued a directive to its member banks, which is every bank in India. It is illegal for you to deal with any business that conducts trade using virtual currency. So any business that sells, trades crypto, has an online store, whatever, they can't use the bank. So they can't get access to fiat, so they can't operate. There's just not enough people that accept crypto to operate a business using only crypto.
All right, well, let's war game this or thought experiment. So if the world adopts crypto or other governments don't fight it and they just adopt it pretty much like Australia has, we've incorporated it one way or another into our tax system. And it's kind of accepted when the ATO starts taxing it, which is fine. how could this play out to exclude themselves from the global market? Like, for example, if I could buy, let's do a thought experiment. If I could buy a car from China using Bitcoin, but not from India using Bitcoin or any crypto, it doesn't have to be Bitcoin, does that automatically exclude themselves from the market, meaning that later they'd be forced to adopt it simply to catch up with the global economy?
Well, it really depends on scenarios, right? Multiple scenarios. That outcome would be plausible if the scenario goes that people start using Bitcoin for normal day-to-day transactions. Remembering there are two kinds of people in the Bitcoin space when we talk about end users: investors and users.
Mm-hmm.
People in first world countries generally are not using crypto day to day. They're buying it for investment. People in third world developing countries like Venezuela, like Peru, like Colombia, that are having economic issues are using Bitcoin to avoid inflation of their national fiat currencies. We would need to see a massive uptake in people using Bitcoin for normal day to day transactions and an actual shift away from the banks for that to happen. What do we need for that to happen? Bad economic conditions worldwide and in fully developed countries, which is still a question of that could happen. No one really knows. But two, we need the Lightning Network. So I sent some Bitcoin a few days ago to an exchange, and I had to wait for nearly an hour and a half. Now, granted, that exchange required 2 full confirmations from the Bitcoin network, but for one confirmation on a normal transaction, it took about 45 to 50 minutes. Too long. It's too long, and it cost $1 or something. We need the Lightning Network. So there's like multiple scenarios on how this could play out. But I think you are right if one of those scenarios played out. But the other scenario is, what if there isn't a global economic recession? What if for some miracle that doesn't happen and people, enough faith is restored in fiat currencies and
And I
people
think that
don't need to use Bitcoin? Because these people in these developing countries are using Bitcoin because there's nothing else. That is like their last savior. Total trust has been lost. They're dealing with 200% inflation a week. Bitcoin is literally, they're surviving on this.
so. My response to that would be this: if okay, so we look at America and they're the pinnacle, and we look at the last GFC, and when America had the recession, the flow-on effects were massive, and it hurt everyone. And I think what you're saying is that if America, Trump's very good with money. I don't care if you like or hate him, whoever you are. The reality is the man is good with money. And even if you say, well, his dad was rich, no, you can have a rich dad and blow all your money. You can win the lottery and blow all your money. Whatever he took, he grew into something big. Now, people go, well, he's been bankrupt, and he argues he hasn't been bankrupt. But in my journey, I've made companies, and companies have failed, and to me, that's been part of my wealth journey. So as Trump has done some very good things for the economy, and we see America perhaps not going into recession, or maybe it does, but we'll just go with this thought experiment. Let's say it doesn't go into recession like we saw with the last GFC, and it doesn't have a flow-on effect. Let's take Venezuela, Cuba, Cyprus, Greece, Argentina. Irrespective of what happened in America, even when the American dollar was strong, those countries still went into recession. So what I'm saying is, or asking is, if America doesn't crash and Trump keeps it up, or the good people of America keep their economy up, does that mean that other economies can't collapse? Does that mean that other economies can't have hyperinflation? And does that mean that other countries will be like, you know what, irrespective of the power that America's got, or the stability, I should say, that America's got, we've had enough. We don't want to be in a situation where we lend you money, real money, and then you pay us back with printed money, or the other way around, we're borrowing printed money and then paying you back with real money. I guess what I'm getting at here, Bo, is America, yes, it's the number one biggest economy in the world, but it's not bigger than all other economies combined. It's not impervious to change. Does everything around crypto and money will it always be centered around the United States of America?
Well, We need to look at things on a global scale, I think, to explore that scenario, right? And what we've seen, or what we know, is there's major global banks, right? So we've got like the World Bank, International Monetary Fund, Bank of International Settlements, and the European Central Bank. These banks are the ones that loan money to developing countries and then jack up the interest because they know they can't afford it and then exploit them for their resources. Or, you know, military strategy by developing a base like China's been doing in parts of Africa.
And then owning a port or something.
Exactly. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. It's totally worth it for them, even if they write off the debt, even if their
Oh
only
yeah.
intention is to get some land. As you would know, as a former service member, you would know just how important things like that are. But what we've seen is that the United States has actually got a lot of influence over some of these world banks, and one such example is Donald Trump's appointed a new head of the International Monetary Fund, at the head of the fund. And this guy specifically was a huge critic of the IMF, didn't like its bureaucratic stance, didn't like what it was doing to other countries, didn't like its size, and he's just been appointed to the head. He's the top dog, and he was appointed by the Trump administration. So the US has tremendous influence over world economics, especially given how powerful they have become in the past 2 years and their ability to impose their agenda using threats of tariffs, which they have followed through on. So every country would be, you know, scared shitless to upset Donald Trump for fear of these tariffs because of how strong their economy is doing and because he's followed through on it. The United States is now also energy independent. So through the use of expanding and opening up their oil and gas industries and coal, they no longer need energy from other nations. That also gives them huge leverage. So like we're seeing a fascinating turn of events play out.
Let me counter that argument. Yes, we use economic sanctions to basically manipulate the way other governments or nations act. But when you keep beating a dog, I'm not calling other nations dogs, but if you keep pushing it into a corner, eventually it will push back. And now that with crypto, it has an option to push back. In my mind, you may see a case of like, you know what? You're not buying our oil anymore. You're not buying our gas anymore. You're not buying our coal anymore. You keep beating us with a stick. We're breaking away because at the end of the day, you've applied sanctions to us anyway. So if there's so many sanctions on them, they're not buying their energy. Maybe, I don't know, but maybe this would in fact go the other way and push people to get together and say, you know what, we're sick of being beaten with a stick. We're sick of now not having any say. Anytime we sneeze, it's like sanction, sneeze, sanction. And it's like, we've had enough. We've now got another option. And I want to push this into Facebook into a second because I think this is what it's all about. When I was doing my economics degree, I actually remember clearly my professor, this guy, I think his name was Chris Orlich. Chris, if you remember me from years ago, a really smart guy. And I remember he used to talk about America they would make enough oil to run their country, but they would stockpile this oil, and then they would buy oil off everyone else and burn their oil. And it kind of made sense. So you've got enough energy to run your country, but you stockpile that energy for war, essentially, in economics term. War is part of the economic cycle. People don't like to admit it, but it is actually part of the economic and human cycle. So you stockpile your resources for war whilst burning the enemy's resources to run your country. Now, of course, when you're doing that for years and years and years, you stockpile lots and lots and lots of oil, but then you start pouring your money out into the global economy and burning their resources. But here's the thing, Bo, when you're buying those resources with non-real money, it's not even real money. I think about it. Imagine I said to you, Bo, I want to buy that fan on your roof there. And you're like, all right, well, it cost me $200. So I go to my printer behind me and I just print a document that says $200. Literally, this is how it is. And I send it to you. and you give me the fan, and we get into this relationship where I'm sending imaginary money to you, but you're sending me real resources in return. Well, of course, every time I do that, I'm diluting what I'm giving you, and you're actually working hard as another country building that fan or really buying that fan, and I'm sending you fake money. Everything is always changing. Things always change. It's a Chinese proverb. I can't say it properly, but if you actually look at nature, everything always changes. And we look at the history of what it was, the British Empire, then the American Empire, and there's been arguments about the Asian Empire, which will be the next evolution. Maybe, maybe not. I don't know. But certainly in nature, in the rules of economics, money, business, life, the planet, the universe, everything is always changing. How long, my friend, can we be in a situation where someone keeps going to that printer behind me to buy that real fan for you from you forever? And more importantly, what was the other option before when we didn't have Bitcoin? And finally, to finish this rant, in my opinion, this whole thing with Trump at the moment has nothing to do with Bitcoin. Well, they're now catching on. That's not true. They're now catching on to what Bitcoin is. But the real catalyst, the spark that lit the fire, and in fact even provided the fuel, was Facebook. Because finally they said, oh, hang on, there's like 2.5 billion people, bigger than our entire population, bigger than China's population, bigger than Russia's population, bigger than India's population, not combined, but individually, bigger than all the banks together, that overnight they could create this financial system. And if you look at Trump's tweets, they're very specific about, yes, it did mention Bitcoin, but it was very much, I mean, he mentioned Facebook's Libra specifically. And he had to do that because poor old Trump, and I'm going to defend Trump here, all his predecessors had this tool where they could go to that printer behind me and just print money out of nothing. And now this president, whether you like him or hate him, it looks like he's going to lose this tool. He's going to lose this tool where he can simply say, here you go, Bo, here's $10 billion, print. And now he will actually have to produce an economic value, an actual value. And I think you talk about Austrian economics. And this is where we get into it, where you actually have to produce a real value. And with this tool taken away from him, he has to realize individually or as a government, holy shit, we are in big trouble. We are now going to lose this hold that we have over the world.
Yeah. I think you nailed it there. When looking at it from a broader perspective on how much influence the administration has over the world to get their agenda through the use of their dollar, there's no way they would ever give that up. And to transition to a currency like Bitcoin, unless they have secret reserves now, they have to start buying it.
Yep.
They have to start mining it,
up.
which is going to put the price up massively. So
and
it's
there's
going
only
to have
so much they can buy because the mining algorithm will only allow so much to come out, and there's only so much left.
Correct. It's going to be a self-fulfilling prophecy, essentially. So they're kind of
Bitcoin time traveler.
Yeah, exactly. There's a lot of strange merit behind his story, especially the countries that he specifically mentioned. But, these governments are really stuck between a rock and a hard place because I think they know that Bitcoin is a hard, sound money, but it's almost like they're too late. They're too late
Yes.
to the game, and I don't. Despite how critical Trump was, and despite me saying there are additional risks, and I do think there are now, it's not going away, and I don't think that's their intention to make it go away. I think merely what they're doing, and I think you hit the nail on the head where Facebook's Libra was a catalyst here. They're putting the handbrakes on. Trump's comments were to influence the public consciousness to slow down on crypto. That essentially what he was saying was, I'm the boss. You're going to slow down on this crypto stuff, right? I don't like it, but I've already addressed he's 77 years old. Not being age discrimination, some incredibly intelligent, affluent people in the crypto space in the senior years, but he's from the old world financial system. There's no denying that. So I think what it was we're putting the brakes on this. This isn't going to get out of control. We're not going to let it get out of control through regulations. We will make it difficult for this industry to innovate and to grow. It will grow, but at a much slower pace. The United States dollar is going to continue. And by the way, there's a few hints in the air of a potential return to a gold standard through two new appointments to the Federal Reserve Board of Governors that are pro gold standard, and the fact that his son bought the
Vault.
bought the vault.
Mm.
Of course, there's a lot of speculation either way.
I don't blame America. I was thinking about the analogy of the goose that lays the golden egg. So the goose is the Federal Reserve, and the golden egg is fiat currency.
Mm.
Now, we're not actually killing. I did some thought experiments with this today. Bitcoin isn't the goose that kills. Isn't the thing that kills the goose. Bitcoin is in fact the thing that kills the egg. That is, the goose, the Federal Reserve, can still make these golden eggs, but the eggs are now worth nothing because it's fiat currency. And they're like, holy shit, we've got this goose, this Federal Reserve that can print as much golden eggs as we want, but the people no longer value the golden eggs. So I'm glad you raised the link back to the gold standard. In my mind, Trump does get it. He gets it really well, and he's like, holy shit, I'm about to lose my hold over this, both the goose and the golden egg. So the only way I can keep my goose is by linking the golden egg to actually gold. And the only way that, of course, we can, because people get money now. Before we didn't get it, we were ignorant. And as I've mentioned before to you, Bo, I'm embarrassed because one of my degrees is economics. So I've got no bloody excuse. I should have known better. And yet I'm the first to put my hand up globally and say, hey, I'm the guy who should have known better. But it wasn't until I got into Bitcoin that I actually understood, holy shit, this is how this is all working. And I am just a mere less than a speck of dust on the radar of the global community, where everyone, with or without a degree, are going, hey, this is how money works. So people are going, you know what? Why do I accept printing off this machine, this imaginary machine behind me or actual machine, to buy something of real value from you, when in fact I've got a real value in Bitcoin because it's finite, mineable, as in it had to actually go through some type of energy use to create it, as opposed to just print, non-counterfeitable, immutable, borderless. We could go on about it all day. We know what Bitcoin is. So perhaps taking the US dollar back to the gold reserve standard is the only way that they can maintain some type of value with the dollar.
And I think what it's also going to be is, and here's the thing, right? So because I do a lot of, like you, I do a lot of thinking about this. Many people in the crypto space are libertarians, right? Who want sovereignty, who have lost trust of the traditional monetary system through the GFC and many other events, who have seen corruption at the highest levels, who have seen laws like bail-in come through that give the right for banks to steal our money in the case of another banking or another financial collapse that they likely caused. And people had had enough. And Bitcoin was and is an answer to that. Now, if they were to go to a gold standard, hypothetically, would that be an event to reinstill trust into society in relation to how money is managed? Could that be done? I don't know. This is like a question I'm asking, I'm pondering. Would it be a way to show people that that change has come about, that things aren't going to be like they were, and that the old guard is out, the new guard is in? How it would work on a global scale, I really have no idea. I have no idea.
Think about if you did go to the gold reserve standard. And it's funny that we're looking at an article from India. I'm glad you brought it in. So we know the most reserves are held in America. So when they switch to the gold, de-link the gold standard, they're like, yeah, give us all you got. They'd already given them the gold and issued out US bank notes. And then when they de-linked it, they still kept the gold and the notes were out there. But as we know, or we may not know, but apparently India, Indian women collectively hold more gold than anyone in the world. So if you take all the Indian women, because basically when you get married or I think if you have a baby, and I do apologize to my Indian viewers if I'm getting this wrong, but I certainly, when it comes to the amount of gold that's held individually, Indian women hold the most amount of gold reserves individually, but when you combine them together, than anyone around the world. So if we did go back to the gold standard, and noting the power of the Indian government, if America said, all right, we're going to link our dollars back to the gold standard, well, guess what they've just done, Bo? They've just made India the biggest holder of money, because then the Indian government, in theory, I'm not saying they will do it, but in theory, thought experiments, anything's possible. Indian government goes around kicking open doors, taking gold, as we saw. I think it was in the 30s when America actually said, I think it was in the 30s, America actually told their people, you will hand in your gold. Now, of course, people stash gold anyway, but they actually said, we're running out of money in the economy. We haven't got enough for this link with the US dollar. Hand in your gold, and we'll issue banknotes in return. And of course, they could only do that to a certain extent. So it goes to de-evolution. Everything changes. Typically, things move forward. If we went backwards to say, right, we're now linking everything to gold, well, first of all, you get that same problem. You'd have massive deflation. Dollars, you'd buy a can of Coke again for 1 cent. A can of Coke would no longer be $1. A can of Coke would be 1 cent because there's only so much gold. And in theory, India would have more money than America if it's linked to gold, because there's more gold in India.
Well, India, Russia, and China have been buying record amounts of gold every year for like the past 6 years.
So then
This
you
this
can't
is
go back to the gold standard, because then straight away and this is what I'm thinking, America, they're screwed. And I get why they're fighting Bitcoin, because the golden egg, the goose is still alive, but the golden egg is dead. It's contaminated.
Yeah, look, man, it's fascinating to explore these concepts,
Yeah.
and I think as Bitcoiners, as as strong believers, but also as rational human beings, I think it's really healthy to explore these scenarios because, like I said earlier, things change every day, and you can't get hung up on a decision you made and let ego get in the way and stop you from reassessing the situation and saying, hey, if things have changed, what do I now need to know to make an informed decision tomorrow? So I love having these conversations and putting it out there because I think we are heading into an unknown time with what is going on a global stage. I think things are far more positive today than what I thought they were going to be 2 years ago. I thought we were in for dire straits, and a lot of other people did too. Things are looking positive, and will they continue? I don't know. I hope so, and it's just going to be interesting to see how things play out. But overall, my biggest wish is that there's peace in the world, and that all countries get the opportunity to grow and develop, and we enter into a new golden era. That would be my wish.
Yeah, I'm with you, brother. And it actually scares me when you remember perception is reality. And the only thing that I've really been scared about in crypto recently, going deep diving into these thought experiments, and I put it out there, I'm about to interview a futurist, Dr. Haim. I'm very excited that he accepted my call out to him, and I'll be interviewing him this week. And I think about the reality, the perception being reality, and reality being the perception of things around us. And if we say a dollar's worth a dollar, and for years, for the last 50 years, we've had the most stability in the history of humankind. And if that has been because of fiat currency and one country, whichever country that may be, in this instance, the United States, controlling a central reserve of money and creating global stability through a world police, whether it be good or bad. The reality is, Bo, this is the longest we've had world peace. And if we look at the Bitcoin time traveler, keeps coming up again. It's just a thought experiment. But if we take away that stability, I sometimes wonder, wow, maybe this is a pretty scary thing, Bitcoin. Maybe it is so much bigger than we realize.
And look, guys, if you haven't, definitely go to Adam's channel and watch the 2-part series on the Bitcoin time traveler. It is some wild stuff, but at the same time, there are bits of info in that for some reason resonate. I don't know why, but there are some things. It is scary because some things resonate, and you're like, wow, like that is really interesting. So if you haven't seen that, as we wrap up today's episode, go to Adam's channel, watch these videos. He's done some crackers lately, actually. Go and watch all these videos, but specifically the time travel stuff. So guys, look, just before I hand it over to Adam, just want to say thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed a bit of a different format, to be honest. I enjoyed it, actually. I enjoyed just kind of talking off the cuff. I think it was really interesting, and hopefully people got some value from that as well. If you're watching on my channel, thank you for watching. If you haven't subscribed, make sure to do so. Give us a like. That always, we really appreciate that, whether you're on my channel or Adam's channel. And Adam, over to you for the closeout, my friend.
Yeah, Bo, it's good to get back to our roots, but we do have to do our coin picks, certainly for the week ahead. Forgive me, crypto guides, for I've sinned. I picked Ethereum last week and it sucked. My pick for the week ahead is good old Bitcoin.
Okay. Did I just go Bitcoin last week?
Yes, you did.
Okay, so Bitcoin.
You had a second coin as well. I can't remember what it was.
Yeah, I went Ethos, which has done all right. It's been quite volatile,
You keep
actually.
going Ethos.
Well, that's because they released some really big news in regards to their token's going to be used as the primary utility token in the Voyager platform. They've had some really nice pumps. My primary coin is going to be Bitcoin again, and my secondary is look, I might even mention Binance Coin. I think keep an eye on Binance Coin, because Binance Coin seem to have this weird behaviors where it like pumps before market rallies and it drops when a market has hit the top. I don't know. I'm starting to see some weird correlations there, so that might be one to keep an eye out on.
Guys, if you haven't seen Bo's course, if you're new to the crypto space, get into Bo's course. The paid or unpaid ones, amazing stuff in there. Really enjoying this journey with you, my brother. Anything to close off before I do the last bit?
Nah, man, that was it. Go for it.
Crypto goers, thanks for listening. Happy investing, and we'll talk to you next time.
See you guys. If you enjoyed the video today, then please consider leaving a like. And if you haven't subscribed yet, then come on board and also click the notification icon so you're always kept up to date. Leave a comment and tell me your thoughts on today's content. Then check out this next interesting video picked just for you.